At the time I made this workshop, LED production lights were changing the way we shoot. There are so many advantages to using LEDs over tungsten, HMI or fluorescent lights. One advantage being their flexibility. There is a large range of LED lights to accommodate almost every requirement a cinematographer can think of, and a few they haven't yet. They can fill a much wider spectrum of practicality than any other lighting tools. This workshop will look at some of the incredible tools and advantages LEDs have. But first, let's look briefly at what they cannot currently do. This is a LED cob light, one of the strongest compact heads at the time I made this film. This is a 12K HMI Fresnel. As you can see, they are much larger, but they are also much brighter. Therefore, they have a much stronger and longer throw. Current LED production lights just cannot deliver the single point power of a tungsten or HMI. To overcome this, you can use a double header on your light stand to mount two lights together, doubling the brightness. But this will no longer be a single point source, and it will cast a double shadow. This Lightstorm head is called a 1200D. The 1200 is the amount of watts the head will use. The D is for daylight, indicating this light is single color, rated at 5600 Kelvin. Many LED lights will have control units. The DMX control can be plugged in to these units, and you can control the light's functions from this unit. These units also require power, so the combined wattage of this head and control unit is 1440 watts. If we apply Ohm's law to this, we end up with a minimum ampage requirement of around 7 amps. Your electrician would have to advise you whether running this unit off of this outlet was a good idea or not. Tungstens and HMIs of an equivalent brightness will have a much higher ampage requirement. Even if you are only going to use a few tungstens, you will probably need to get a generator. This low amp requirement for LEDs is game-changing, particularly for low wattage heads like a 300. Another advantage of this low amp requirement is it allows you to run all your lights off of batteries. With some control units, you can run them directly from a V-mount on the controller case. This is so useful when on location. Control units have other functions than holding up the battery. The unit for the head's 600C Pro, for instance, has a variable frequency control. This allows you to set the hertz of the light cycles to match the frame rate of the camera you are shooting with. This unit can go from 0 Hz to 2000 Hz. When shooting extreme slow motion, like an action scene or a hair commercial, you would usually use a specialized high-speed camera, like a Phantom. I usually shoot hair shots for shampoo ads at around 1000 frames per second. Here you can see I'm shooting at 938 frames per second. If you would like to know why I'm using this strange frame rate, I explain this and many more slow-mo techniques in the Shooting a High-End Hair Commercial in the Advanced Cinematography course of the workshops. As my frame rate is much higher than the cycles of the electricity, which will be 50 or 60 depending where we are in the world, the camera will be exposing frames where the alternating current is at 0. Thus, it will capture a flickering, pulsating light. There are ways to test and avoid capturing flicker for both tungsten and HMIs that I study in the advanced course. But they are difficult, time-consuming, and often have cost implications. To synchronize an HMI, for instance, you'll need to use a high-speed ballast. These are rare and expensive to rent. This ballast maxes out at 1000 Hz. But the Phantom camera does not, and it can go much faster than you can get your lights to keep up with. This control unit goes up to 2000 Hz, and it is as simple as turning a knob. In fact, it can be set to any frequency you need to sync with your camera. If you shoot a lot of slow-mo like I do, as I shoot a lot of commercials, then this function is a game changer. But the biggest advantage of modern LED lights has to be DMX, and now wireless DMX, controlled by an app on your phone. This is Syllabus, the control app for aperture lights. Most LED manufacturers have their own app, and I am sure they are all equally functional, if not now, then in the future. However, I mostly have aperture lights, so I use and know best Syllabus. This is not a tutorial on using the app, it is an explanation on what apps like this and LED lights allow you to do. Once you have linked your light to the app, it will recognize the functions available to that particular light and display the appropriate interface. Different lights have different capabilities, so don't expect all the functions I show you here to be available with your light, and your light may have many more functions than I will list here. Basic functions are white light controls, color gel, color control, and lighting effects. These buttons are all touchscreen. Let's start with white. You have an intensity slider that will dim the light linked. It is incremented from 1 to 100, but there are quick set buttons also, quarter, half, and full. There is a CCT slider which stands for Correlated Color Temperature. This controls the Kelvin temperature of the light. This is also capable of numeric settings, as well as presets: tungsten 3200K, neutral white 4000K, and daylight 5600K. There are also a number of incremented presets if you are not so familiar with the Kelvin scale. These are identified with icons. Just hit the icon of the light you are shooting in and it will go to the correct color temperature. This page of the app reminds me of the icon chart hidden on the inside of Kodak film boxes. Match your situation to the icon and there's your exposure. Thus you don't need to be a technophile to operate this app. Next is gel. These are color corrective settings, CTO and CTB. Set the light to tungsten and apply the CTB you want. This page is to help cinematographers and crew that are used to gelling lights and not used to the Kelvin scale. Switch to daylight and apply the CTO you want. Also in filters is a Lee and Roscoe set of swatches. Creative gels are presented in swatch books. Each swatch in the app will set the color of the light to simulate the gel picked. This allows you to experiment with many more colors than when using actual gels, as every gel costs money. Thus you can only order the gels you think you will use for the shoot. With this system, you can try every gel in both the Lee and Roscoe collection with no limitation or cost implication. Color displays a wheel with a white in its center. Touch the color you want and the light will present the color you picked. This window displays the color, this hue, and this saturation. You can dynamically move around the wheel and the light will dynamically display whatever color your finger is on in real time. If you have numeric values for the color you want, there are also numeric sliders for hue and saturation as well as intensity. A color space chromaticity diagram for X and Y values, and RGB sliders. Also in color there is a picker function. Using the camera of the phone, line up the color of the light you want to match the lighting in the environment, and save. The light will copy the color within the target. This graded color can then be altered via hue, saturation, and intensity. Effects are a handy set of lighting sequences that simulate camera flashes, fireworks, police cars, lightning, and many more. The intensity and frequency of these effects can be controlled via sliders. So you can see the potential of LED lights is truly game-changing. But there is one more aspect of the apps that often accompany these lights. Each light can be ganged alongside numerous others and displayed as sliders on a dimmer page, activated as a gang or individual. They can be pre-programmed with intricate lighting cannons and matrix. And these apps can function on pads as well as phones. So what's next? Perhaps external lighting panels for lighting designers and programmers. The potential of this for the industry is huge. Small studios do not have the function of large Hollywood-style studios, mainly because of the astronomical cost of Pro DMX lighting control panels. LED lights are changing the industry. They are giving us more creative capability, simplifying the process, and dramatically reducing the cost of high-end professional equipment. Whether buying prosumer or professional LED lights, they're considerably cheaper than HMI and tungsten equivalents, and yet have the potential to be so much better. These lights are truly making the future of cinematography bright.